What do you expect from an action-adventure game? How about a fully featured race mode, complex vehicle physics, racing wheel support, intricate damage system, and over half the total gameplay taking place in a car? Well, that's what you get in Mafia, a game known for its lively open world and rich storytelling, but no one's mentioning its surprisingly in-depth driving. In fact, the game became infamous for its brutal racing mission, which as we'll discover, isn't challenging at all. But before that, the game starts you off in a taxi, and right off the bat, you have the option to use manual gear shifting. The cars in this game have an actual transmission and don't just make a fake shifting noise like its competitor. The game takes place in 1930s, so the cars are really slow, and the game wants you to go even slower by enforcing traffic laws in the next mission. If this game was released today, 80% of players would have run out of attention span and refunded the game right here. And if not, the next mission has you driving the slowest car in the game. It takes ages just to turn on. At the destination, you're tasked with smashing up some cars, where the game flexes its impressive for the time damage system. Instead of having parts that change upon damage, the vehicle deforms wherever you hit it. The game takes place in a large open world city, but what not many people know about is the heavily underutilized countryside right above it. Next up, we have one of the only two missions where you get to drive through its slow uphill roads. Just look at this intense car chase. While this mission can make you fall asleep, the next one does the exact opposite. Even if you don't know anything about Mafia, you might have heard of The Race. The mission so many people got stuck on, the developers patched the game and added difficulty settings to it. But before that, we need to get to the racetrack and borrow this Bugatti for a satisfying night drive through the city. No police, no music, no headlights, just you and a very loud engine. You take the car to a mechanic to sabotage it.
It ain't gonna run as well as when you first brought it in.
It drives exactly the same as before. You then take the car back and drive home. That should have been the end of it. But you already know what's gonna happen. Prepare for the hardest mission in the game. Exactly what is difficult about this mission? The first corner and we're winning already. And unlike other racing games, the AI doesn't rubber band. They do have boosted cars, but they won't magically catch up to you. In fact, you can easily lap them. Now you might comment,
easy to say for a channel dedicated to racing games.
Okay, let's balance things out. Default settings, no cuts, and for an authentic 2002 PC experience, 15 frames a second. It's really not hard. I ran laps nearly 10 seconds slower than my personal best, spun the car out twice, and still beat the AI by 25 seconds. This was on the unpatched version of the game, which people say is the hardest, but the AI is actually around 30 seconds faster on the patched version of the game using extreme difficulty. The misinformation is so widespread about this mission. I even gave them a head start and still managed to catch back up by the second lap. You really have to avoid hitting other cars though, as your wheels can intertwine and spin both of you out. Otherwise, the biggest challenge comes from keeping the car in control, since turning too much will cause it to spin out. But even if you drive super safe, this race is not a problem, and is far from the hardest mission in the game. So why did it become infamous? Well, I'm assuming people who bought Mafia expected a Mafia game, not a game where its designers sat behind computers with racing wheels.
Those guys were making a race car game.
And it makes total sense. There used to be a dedicated racing mode cut from the game, which later appeared in the console version. Not only that, the game supports force feedback steering wheels, something exclusive to hardcore racing games at the time, and this Mafia game has it too. Even today, the game recognizes your wheel and pedal inputs with no external programs required. But modern wheels are still too dumb for old games. I had to build a custom adapter, ask a programmer to program it, and after testing 20 firmwares, I can finally confirm the game does indeed utilize force feedback. With a wheel, you have full control of the steering, allowing you to turn just the right amount to maintain traction in the race car. But the people buying this game only had a mouse and keyboard, so like the majority of racing games, Mafia automatically smoothens your inputs and gradually turns the wheel for you with the press of a button. The implementation of this system in Mafia isn't great, but unlike other games, Mafia lets you bind a secondary button that doesn't have this filtering, allowing you to instantly apply max input, which vastly improves the driving experience in this game when combined with regular steering. This makes the already easy race mission even easier. As for road-going cars, they become faster and faster as the years go by in the story, with newer models replacing the older ones on the streets. The rest of the game is actually what you expect from a Mafia game, but a lot of it is just getting around the city in your car, and thanks to the transparent map overlay, you won't have to stare at one corner of the screen for half of your playthrough. This type of map makes pathfinding and driving more engaging and better familiarizes you with the city. A great addition that was later replaced by one of the worst. The cars themselves are heavily based on real-life vintage cars. According to interviews, they also try to replicate the car's performance, but no game has ever fully achieved that. Still, while other non-racing games treated cars as just a faster way of walking, Mafia treated cars like cars, with actual parts and components. The driving in this game is comparable to other good racing games at the time, and it wasn't just limited to vehicles. Mafia's overall attention to detail rivaled games they got accused of being a clone of. In fact, Mafia's development started before GTA 3, originally intended as a game similar to The Driver and later turned into a narrative-driven Mafia game, so the vehicles ended up receiving a lot of attention. You can damage the bodywork, engine, transmission, fuel tank, wheels and tires all individually. You can't destroy the engine just by shooting the frame, and the car can still function with a missing wheel, though it's not without its flaws. The wheels frequently fail to register bumps, sometimes colliding with them, sometimes not colliding at all. The car's bumpers easily get stuck to each other, heavier cars are more responsive for some reason, and tires lose grip way too suddenly, making drifting a lot more difficult. But also, the cars are just not powerful enough and are relatively grippy. Fortunately, the game features 20 custom prototype cars that can be unlocked in the Freeride Extreme mode, which replaced the Cut Racing mode. It mostly includes timed driving missions with a twist, like having to stay above a certain speed, riding the clutch in a gas-guzzling car, swapping 3 race cars across the city, and staying within the certain range of an airplane. One of them increases your field of view the faster you go, making it much harder to see what's ahead. Beating it unlocks the most iconic prototype car in the game. It's the fastest, but also refuses to drive in a straight line. And the game remembers everything. Doesn't matter if you go across the map or reload your save, the cars stay wherever you left them. Moving on, Mafia was later ported to consoles, and to put it simply, it's terrible. Everything about it is worse than the original. Everything except the driving. There is no manual and the controls can't be customized, but the smoothing has been vastly improved, the cars are less wobbly, and the tires slip more gradually, which means you can properly slide now. In addition, the racing mode finally makes an appearance, with 4 car classes and 16 races taking place on the track, city, and even the countryside, though the game still doesn't utilize its off-road handling enough. You'll unlock a monster truck after beating all races. Now you can go into single race mode, set all your opponent's cars to Model Ts, and smash them up. This console version of Mafia is better as a racing game than an action game. It truly captures the spirit of speed in 1937. The PC version never got the racing mode, but someone tried to port it through a mod and even add to it with new championships for slower car classes. That was a terrible idea. The mod recreates every track from the console version and even adds new ones, though the AI is clearly not programmed to drive on them. They still provide a challenge, but only when you have to find a way around them. And this is what happens when you try to deal with them in a tank. The custom race functionality is still mostly intact and shows you just how overpowered your car was in the race mission. Only one prototype car can beat this thing, and they made most of them 4-wheel drive to further improve stability. Still, it was nice being able to finally put these cars through their paces, and if this video gets 10,000 likes, I'll livestream 99 laps of this in a Model T. This mod might as well be a complete, albeit buggy DLC for the main game. But you don't even know about it because Mafia's modding scene, like the game itself, slowly fell into obscurity. No one even thought to back up the biggest Mafia modding website when it was shut down. It felt like everyone forgot this game even existed. Until 18 years later, when we got a full remake, the Defective Edition. This time, however, they actually tried to make a Mafia game, with driving taking a backseat. So much that they forgot to map a clutch button for controllers, and they won't let you remap it because I guess technology isn't advanced enough for custom bindings yet. Although unresponsive, the driving is still surprisingly good on a flat surface. However, the game now does a lot of fakery to keep your car stable over elevations, and sometimes fails horribly at it. Despite vehicle physics becoming better, more accessible, and easier to implement, most games, racing or not, are becoming worse and worse in this regard. Well, if you don't like the driving, you can just skip it entirely. If you're tired of crashing, you can switch to brain-dead physics, and if that's not enough, we added a RAM function that doubles down as unlimited nitros or infinite grip. This takes up a button that could have been used to pull up a transparent map instead. And this is not limited to the driving. Every aspect of the game was dumbed down to appeal to a more casual audience. Gone are the immersive sim elements of the original. Everything is now more scripted and linear. They really try to stay faithful to the original as much as possible, but they also knew that the majority of buyers have to waste over half their waking hours on things barely more productive than playing video games. They won't have time to get used to a new genre or watch a 1 hour extension of this video.